So I would love to start from the beginning of your journey. My first question is, would you consider yourself an emotionally intense person?
A resounding yes. I've been emotionally intense from what I hear from the moment I was born, probably even when I was still in the womb. But my whole life, I've always felt things, uh, what I believe to be deeper than other people. I like to explain it when I talk about um, what it feels like this, the saturation is more intense. So if you think about like a pale pink and a pale blue that most people feel, I feel like cobalt blue and magenta, just more saturated, more intense experience.
Sometimes it's okay to have a diffused vision in the metaphorical sense that sometimes it's okay to relax, to not feel so much.
Yes.
Do you have tools and strategies to kind of healthily cut off rather than unhealthily dissociate?
Yeah,
You see what
I
I
love
mean?
the way that you phrase that question too, because I think most sensitive, emotionally intense people have unhealthy ways to
Yeah.
dissociate. Things like technology or drinking wine or eating sugar, those sort of things that seem like they work, but they don't really. I travel to speak quite often, and that can be very overwhelming. The flying, staying in a hotel, being around crowds of people, speaking, the bright lights. The thing that I do most regularly that's helpful is a grounding meditation, a
Right.
sort of meditation to feel connected to the earth and release whatever it is that I'm absorbing or holding on to, and kind of come back to feeling what my own energy feels like, that sort of peaceful, just presence, and get away from that buzzing, that activity.
Right.
It's taking care of ourselves on the front end rather than waiting until we feel invaded by other energy or overwhelmed, because then we're just kind of coping with it. Then we're trying to metaphorically get the water out of the boat. And the way to keep that boat floating is to not let the water get in. And from what I've heard from my parents and cousins, family that was around, I was a really challenging child, or so they tell me. I was born very sensitive and intense. When my mom and I do talks together, she'll usually begin a talk by saying that my older brother, if he could speak when he was born, he would have looked around and said, "Ooh, this is going to be fun." And he just kind of coasted through life. And when I was born, I would have said, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to be here. Put me back in." Because
Oh.
from the moment I was born, life always felt like too much for me.
Mm.
Um, you know, the sensory experience felt too intense. Everything felt challenging. I had a hard time kind of settling and being comfortable. And because both of my parents were educators, my mom was an early childhood educator. They would tell you, if they were sitting here right now, that they had a lot of ego with my older brother because
Mm.
everything they did worked. He was sweet and easygoing, and he listened. And very often we use the marker of a child listening as them being good.
Oh yeah.
My mom tells the story of, my brother would climb on something and she would say to him, "That's not for climbing," and he would stop. And I would climb on something and she would say to me, "That's not for climbing," and I would look her right in the eye and keep going. And so we were just born with very different hard wiring.
Mm.
And somewhere around when I was 4 or 5, after my parents having these thoughts of, she's too sensitive, too intense, too reactive, too emotional, they realized that I wasn't changing, that no sort of shaming it out of me was going to change who I was. I like to say it's much like, if you look at a child who's born with blue eyes and you say to them, "Why are your eyes so blue? They should be brown." You cannot shame those eyes into being a different color. And our temperament, our hard wiring is the same way. It is not going to change. It is who we are.
Yeah.
The things that I needed were just to be understood for who I was instead of being questioned.
Mm.
I watch a lot of parents with sensitive children say things to their children like, "Why are you so upset?" or why are you making a big deal? They can't explain it. That would be like saying, "Why are your eyes so blue?" I don't know, because that's how my genetics are.
Yeah, I was just thinking about all the adults out there who hasn't had the fortune to have such experience. Their parents might no longer be there or just don't have the capacity to be that holding, grounding force for them. What should they do? I mean, can they be their inner parents? Is there a way of them? I mean, they
Yeah.
can't go back to the past and change their childhood.
Yeah.
What can they do today?
They could do a beautiful meditation where they sit with their own inner child,
Mm,
and they see themselves as that young child, and give that inner child that compassion. Because
mm,
I know for me as an adult, when I was able to give that to my own inner child, I stopped needing it from other people.